pretty creative ideas. Commissioner Pat O'Malley was the first guy to raise his hand, and Pat said, "I don't care what we do with the Bears. Can I just run out there and get my picture with them first?" Commissioner Jim Wanzak, who was not paying a bit of attention, said, "Bears? What bears? I've been dealing with 8 million other issues here." Bob Bolus then shouted from the back of the room, "How about if I just run the Bears over with my truck and then submit it to my insurance company?" Then Father Sika raised his hand. Now, I don't really know what Father Sika was doing at that meeting in the first place, but Father Sika had a good idea. Father Sika said, "How about if I take the Bears on a private tour of the landfill?" Last but not least, Chuck Volpe stood up and said, "Don't be silly, guys. I'll just spend $500,000, get the 3 Bears on the ballot in November, and have the voters eliminate them." Finally, they all agreed, sadly, that the Bears would have to be shot. So they called State Representative Marty Flynn. Gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's clerical speaker. Having never missed a Friendly Sons dinner in the last 25 years, it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's clerical speaker, a very dear friend and a truly loyal Friendly Son, the president of Scranton Preparatory School, the Reverend Herbert B. Keller.
Your Excellency, Bishop Bambara, fellow members of the clergy, Vice President Biden, Senator Casey, Congressman Cartwright, distinguished guests and members of the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick, good evening. As Dan indicated, I've been coming to this dinner for many years, and there is one sentence that I've never heard spoken by anyone in attendance all that time, and it is this: the speaker was good, but his talk was too short. So know that I have that perspective in mind tonight. I do want to begin by thanking Jimmy Haggerty, the president of the Friendly Sons, for inviting me to speak tonight. And I've been coming to this dinner for decades, sitting as a guest at Dr. Charlie Bannon's table. So I've been coming to the Friendly Sons for a long time, almost as long as it took Jimmy to get married. I always knew Jimmy would get married, I just wasn't sure it would be in my lifetime. Jimmy is such a devout Irish Catholic that he goes to great lengths to imitate Jesus in his life. Even living at home for 30 years with his mother. Which reminds me of a quick story about Irish mothers. A young Irishman tells his mother he's in love, and just for fun, he brings home 3 young women and asks his mother to guess which of the 3 he has chosen to be his bride. After his mother interviews all 3, she says, "Your fiancé is the one in the middle." The young man replies, "That's amazing, Ma. How did you know?" And the Irish mother answers, "Because I don't like her." But on a serious note, I do want to thank Jimmy Haggerty for this invitation. It means a great deal to me. Jimmy's a very loyal friend. When he was attending this dinner when he was in high school, he told me out in the lobby here that if he were ever the president of the Friendly Sons, I would be his clerical speaker. Now, for the record, I did not remind him of that statement, but Jimmy remembered it. And tonight I am thinking, Jimmy, of your parents, your wonderful mom, Celia, and in a special way, your late father, Jim, who was such a presence at this dinner. And I am thinking about how proud he is of you tonight. I have been privileged to serve in this area for almost 30 years in various roles at Scranton Prep. And coming to know so many of you and your families has been a real joy in my life and my priesthood. And I am happy to be able to remain in this area after I stepped down as president in July. My religious superiors apparently wanted to give me a job with less stress, so they made me rector of the Jesuit community. Which do you think is more stressful, 800 teenagers or 20 Jesuits? And speaking of Jesuits, as you know, we have a Jesuit Pope. I don't know if you heard that Pope Francis just reported that he had a vision of God. And in that vision, God allowed Pope Francis to ask him 3 questions. His first was, will there be women priests? And God answered him, not in your lifetime, my son. Next he asked God, will there be married priests? And God answered, not in your lifetime, my son. And Francis asked his final question, will there be another Jesuit pope? And God answered, not in my lifetime, my son. But God keeps all of us humble. Some of you know that my own mother passed away just after the turn of the new year. And I was thinking of her tonight because of a conversation we had back in October, right after Jimmy and Dan took me to dinner and asked me to be the clerical speaker. A few days later, I was visiting with my mom at Green Ridge Care Center, where she lived. And I told her that I would be speaking tonight. And then I told her she could listen to my talk on the radio. She was very excited about that. And then she asked me what night of the week would the dinner be held. I checked the calendar on my phone and said, this year, March 17th is on a Tuesday. With a great smile and sense of relief, she said, oh, thank goodness. We have bingo here on Mondays and Wednesdays. Our families do keep us humble. And tonight we reflect about families, especially our Irish ancestors. Personally, I think tonight of my mom's mother, Mary Mullen, who was born in Donegal and came to this country when she was 23. I think of my dad's mother, Mary Flatley, who was born in County Mayo and who came to the U.S. when she was 27. And I think of my great-grandfather, who fought at Gettysburg as a member of the 69th Pennsylvania Volunteers, known proudly as the Irish Regiment, the regiment that played a key part in repelling Pickett's charge, and the only Pennsylvania regiment in the Civil War to carry a green Irish flag into battle. So in many ways, tonight is about memory, and the Irish know something about memory. I don't know if you've heard this definition of an Irish boomerang. It doesn't come back. It just sings sad songs about how much it wants to. And sometimes when we talk about memory, we talk about the memory of those who have died, which reminds me of a story that I shared at the parade mass a few days ago. Mrs. Shawn Monahan came into the Scranton Times newsroom years ago to pay for her husband's obituary. She was told by the kindly newsman that it was $1 a word, and he went on to say that he remembered Shawn, a hardworking fisherman, and wasn't it too bad about him passing away. She thanked the newsman for his kind words and bemoaned the fact that she only had $2. But she wrote out the obituary. Shawn died. The newsman said he thought old Shawn deserved more, and he'd give her 3 more words at no charge. Mrs. Monahan thanked him and rewrote the obituary. Shawn died, boat for sale. As Monsignor McGowan used to say, you're a good audience. But the Irish do indeed know something about the value of memory. In fact, the Irish are often thought of as embellishing, just a wee bit, the stories that make up our memories. In his novel Tipperary, the author Frank Delaney writes this: "We Irish prefer embroideries to plain cloth. To us Irish, memory is canvas stretched, primed, and ready for painting on. We love the story part of the word history, and we loved it trimmed out with color and drama and ribbons and bows. Listen to our tunes. Observe a Celtic scroll. We always decorate our essence." As Delaney notes, for the Irish, it is the essence of the memory that is so important, and perhaps not so much all the facts. But in decorating the essence, the Irish truly celebrate what is glorious about memory. Tonight we gather to recall our memories as families and as a people. And we gather to celebrate the Irish character, the Irish spirit, that which defines us as Irish. If you think about it, the Irish are known for two traits that on the surface seem to be contradictory. On one hand, people see the Irish as being happy, smiling, and witty, even at the toughest times in life. One need only think of the term Irish wake, and that point is brought home. And on the other hand, and what may seem a contradiction, the Irish are known to be solemn in the midst of joy. This point was made famously by the great Irish poet, William Butler Yeats, when he commented on an Irish friend, "Being Irish, he had an abiding sense of tragedy which sustained him through temporary periods of joy." And this seeming contradiction in the Irish character was articulated well by G.K. Chesterton in one of his poems. He wrote, "For the great Gaels of Ireland are the men that God made mad. For all their wars are merry, and all their songs are sad." And so doesn't it seem that these two traits are contradictory, and that the Irish are men that God made mad, made crazy? Even though we should remember that Sigmund Freud once wrote of the Irish, "This is one race of people for whom psychoanalysis is of no use whatsoever." It's a true quote. But I believe it is all really one piece. As Irishmen, I believe that we smile in the midst of adversity, and we are restrained in the midst of joy because of our faith. Because we know that this world is not all there is, that our history, our story in this life is not complete. We have wit amidst adversity because our perspective of faith gives us hope. And we are melancholy amidst joy because we know in our faith that there is a struggle in this world. This world isn't perfect, and evil still occurs. But we do not despair or throw up our hands or feel helpless. Like the church, we have hope. And so even in darkness, we can smile. We laugh and tell stories at wakes because death is not the end of the story. In a dark world, we believe that hope will prevail. The Irish believe that forgiveness is stronger than vengeance. Love is stronger than hatred. Peace is stronger than war. That's the way of the Irish, and that's our faith. And for the Irish, this is a faith that propels us to action. The Irish accept these words of St. Ignatius of Loyola, founder of the Jesuit order: "Faith ought to show itself in deeds and not merely in words." When Robert F. Kennedy addressed this dinner on this night 51 years ago, he reminded us that the faith of the Irish people, a faith born of struggle, prompts us to act. Kennedy said to the Friendly Sons that night, "Ireland's chief export has been neither potatoes nor linen, but exiles and immigrants who have fought with sword and pen for freedom around the earth." He went on to say, "Recall the heritage of the Irish. Let us hold out our hands to those who struggle for freedom today, as Ireland struggled for 1,000 years. Let us show them that we have not forgotten the constancy and the faith and the hope of the Irish. What Robert Kennedy reminded us of on St. Patrick's Night in 1964 is that our responsibility as those of Irish heritage mirrors the responsibility of all people of faith. The concerns of the poor and the immigrants, of freedom and security, of health and life are Irish concerns, and the concerns of the church as well. To me, it is no accident then that the Irish in our country have always been represented in such great numbers in the ranks of our firefighters, police, politicians, teachers, healthcare workers, priests, and religious sisters. To serve our fellow men and women is at the core of the Irish spirit. A final thought. In our home growing up, one of the albums that we listened to on the stereo every Christmas was Bing Crosby's White Christmas album. And many of those songs, as you may know, have an Irish twist, songs like Christmas in Killarney. And as a child, I never understood why one song was on that album, because to me, it wasn't a Christmas song, and I didn't know then its connection to Ireland. Right next to Silent Night and Jingle Bells was Faith of Our Fathers. I found out later that Crosby wanted it on that album because it was considered an Irish religious anthem and spoke of the long struggle for freedom and of a faith and a nation that endured, as the lyrics say, in spite of dungeon, fire, and sword. And there is one phrase in that hymn that I have always loved. It says we are called to preach our faith despite hardship by kindly words and virtuous life. And here's the phrase, as love knows how. And isn't that the genius of the Irish? What sets the Irish character apart? We can smile in the face of adversity and have hope in the midst of darkness because of our faith, because love knows how. As Robert Kennedy reminded us at this dinner 51 years ago tonight, let us continue to share that gift so that our world will not have, in his words, forgotten the constancy and the faith and the hope of the Irish. And on this night, let us recommit ourselves to live the lives of the true sons of Ireland and share our spirit and our faith as love knows how. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Keller. You've been an invaluable member of our community, and we're thankful you will be remaining with us for many years to come. I'd like to welcome back to the podium tonight's vocalist, Ciarán Sheehan, to sing The Fields of Athenry.
By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling, Michael, they are taking you away, for you stole Trevelyan's corn, so the young might see the morn. Now a prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wings, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. by a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling. Nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine and the crown, I rebelled, they ran me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely on the fields of Athenry. By a lonely harbor wall, she watched the last star falling. As the prison ship sailed out against the sky, now she'll wait and hope and pray for her love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely on the fields of Athenry. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of
Thank you, Kieran. That is just spectacular. Thank you. The following is a story that all of northeastern Pennsylvania woke up to on September 14th in the Scranton Times. It was written by a talented staff writer, Sarah Hophius Hall. The headline read simply, Ambush. The subhead, State Trooper slain at barracks, second wounded, manhunt continues. A gunman opened fire late Friday night at the State Police Barracks, killing one trooper, injuring another, and triggering a massive manhunt for the suspect. Authorities said Saturday that Corporal Brian Dixon of Dunmore died in the ambush outside the barracks about 10:50 p.m. Trooper Alex T. Douglas of Oliphant underwent surgery and was in critical but stable condition, according to state police officials. This attack was an ambush. Our troopers were leaving the barracks and were shot without warning, State Police Commissioner Frank Noonan said during a Saturday afternoon press conference. This is a traumatic event. It has touched us to the core that such an event can happen. A massive search for the gunman continued throughout Saturday in rural Pike County and beyond. Police had no suspects in custody as of late Saturday. Corporal Dixon, a